Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss A Quiet Place Part 2. Starring Emily Blunt, Melissa Simmons, Noah Jupe, Cillian Murphy, Jimon Hounsou, and John Krasinski, directed by John Krasinski. Now, before I get into this review, I went to the theaters twice for this thing, and how do I feel about it? Let's get into it and we'll see. We start at the beginning of when the hearing creatures arrive on day one, and we see Lee Abbott returned briefly by John Krasinski because he died at the end of the first one as he goes to his son Marcus's baseball game. And Marcus, returned by Noah Jupe, is up to bat at the baseball game as his family, including the kid that died from the rocket ship at the beginning of the first film, is there with Reagan, returned by Melissa Simmons, Evelyn, returned by Emily Blunt, to watch and support Marcus at the game along with Lee as they meet Emmett, played by Cillian Murphy, with his son as they watch the game, and Emmett asks Reagan how to say dive in sign, which will come back later in the film. And I like that this reminds us and other things later on, and as the hearing creatures come to planet Earth, as it makes me think they're aliens here to destroy the Earth. While at the baseball game, the family splits up as the little boy and Marcus go with Evelyn, and Reagan goes with Lee as a cop arrives where Lee is at to find out what they are. As the town gets attacked by the hearing creatures, as Lee and Reagan go in a bar to avoid getting killed as an old man prays, but Lee covers his mouth to keep quiet as someone's phone rings, and I thought, oh my god, they're screwed. And the creature attacks the bar. Meanwhile, Evelyn and Marcus drives by Lee's truck after they see the hearing creature for the first time, and they drive backwards as a bus with the creature is going towards it. And I swear to God, when I saw the trailer, I thought this is a ride at Universal Studios or something like that. And they do eventually find each other, and this first 10 minutes is very frightening to begin with, as the rest of the movie couldn't make me breathe because it's so quiet. I didn't want to make a sound for this whole movie except when the score comes in, and at times as it is that gripping, but not as much as the first film. We move on to day 474, and I thought, aren't the hearing creatures coming for them when at the end of the first one? But nope, there's no attack coming, which is a problem to begin with. And another problem is I have is Reagan doesn't seem to know how to listen to people. Well, I mean, the actress is deaf, but when they say just stay here, as she just wanders off on her own, which will kind of annoy me when I get there. But Reagan, Evelyn, and Marcus, and the newborn baby who was born in the last film, have no choice but to leave their home and go to a safe place because of what ended up happening at the end of the last movie. And I would too. It's a smart choice, but as they arrived at a safe place, Evelyn gets tricked by tripping on a wire with some glass making noises, and they run for their lives. And Marcus gets caught in a bear trap, and he screams and he's for his life, calling the hearing creatures, and they do get him out of the bear trap. And Evelyn does shoot one until and they get countered by Emmett, and he puts them in a safe spot where nothing can hear Marcus screaming in pain, and they recognize Emmett from the baseball game, as he says to them they can't stay here, as he can't help them because Marcus is in pain. He asks them to stay for one night, and I really like Cillian Murphy's character, and I like the returning characters as well, and I like seeing them work together in survival. Reagan puts headphones on Marcus's ears until eventually Beyond the Sea, performed by Bobby Darin, is playing at the radio station, is playing over and over again as nobody is there to switch the song, and it'll lead to Reagan going off on her own without Evelyn, Marcus, and the newborn child, after they were told to remain where they're at, but she tries to go off which bugs me, to the train tracks to an island where she believes where people are at, which is beyond terrifying. It is intense, but stupid on Reagan's part at the same time. Reagan follows the train tracks to an abandoned train where there's absolutely no one and nothing inside as she encounters a hearing creature and is almost killed until Emmett comes in to save her life, which is courageous of him as he's about to take her to her mother, but she begs him to find the radio station, and he and Reagan can't communicate very well until she tells him to enunciate his words. And I love that scene as they help each other out. And it's great acting from both Cillian Murphy and Melissa Simmons as they communicate very well at this point. Reagan wakes up thinking Emmett is gone or got killed, but he's luckily still alive as he got her hearing aid working. And I like that. Sometimes we get to her point of view as the audience hears the same way she hears things. Evelyn goes to town without the baby and Marcus to go to the market as she gets air bottles for Marcus and the baby, which makes sense, as well as some pills, as the baby's almost out of oxygen on one air bottle. So I like that way. It makes sense for emergency reasons as well as some medicine. Meanwhile, Marcus looks after the baby and his oxygen bottle is getting rather lower as time goes on. Reagan and Emmett go their way to an island as they see it, and they get to a river where they're encountered by some people in the river who might want them dead, as it did feel pretty obvious as they put bottles on Emmett's neck where they touch Reagan with a knife, and Emmett signs Reagan to dive into the water, which is a damn good callback from the beginning of the film, as the hearing creatures come in to kill the savages from the boats. And Emmett dives in, almost getting choked to death, but luckily he gets out of it alive, and that piece of action is pretty well done. I thought it worked pretty damn great. Good job, Mr. Krasinski. Marcus is almost attacked by the hearing creatures, and he hides in a safe spot as Evelyn comes back to the hiding location with the medicine and a couple of oxygen bottles as she calls a hearing creature as she almost blows it up, but it's still alive, and water comes on at the factory where they're hiding. Now remember, they can't hear humans while water is on as she gets in her hiding spot back with the baby and Marcus, and safely, which did feel pretty damn intense. Reagan and Emmett get in the boat, and as they land on the island at nighttime, they find people having a good time outside because they can't swim, as we saw during the last intense action scene with Emmett and Reagan. The man on the island, played by G.B.M.H, whom I'm going to call him for the rest of the show, which because he appeared rather late in the movie, but he doesn't have a name. But I always liked G.B.M.H in any movie I've seen him in, starting with the 2000 film Gladiator, which was when I became familiar with him. As Emmett asks G.B.M. to take them to the radio station, and he says yes, surprisingly, quickly as he tells Reagan the good news, and Emmett walks to the beach and hears something as he sees the hearing creatures are on the island. And I thought, oh crap, they're screwed. As Emmett shouts to get inside as they're coming for them, and they begin to attack, and G-Man hides his kids in the closet and takes Emmett and Reagan to the radio station while one of the creatures are attacking the car. And as they arrive at the radio station, G-Man wants to go back with his family and gets killed, which was a shocker, but he had a small part, so it makes sense. They get inside the radio station to find where the music is coming from, as they do find it, and while Beyond the Sea is playing, a creature almost kills Emmett, and Reagan, I thought, oh crap, they're dead meat. But Reagan hurts the creature's ears as she smashes the creature dead, while Evelyn sees there's a creature coming to get her, the baby, and Marcus, as they do get briefly attacked as Marcus comes out of the safe hole and makes it loud from Reagan's radio trick and shoots it dead, and everyone is saved as he pulls up a gun and shoots the creature, but not quite back together yet, as there's another movie coming eventually, as the climax is thrilling and spectacular and very, very intense. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 8.6 out of 10. Not quite as good as the first film, but still rather very intense, as it is a pretty good sequel, as it's a nice continuation. There were a couple of problems, like where the movie started off after the first 10 minutes of the film, as there was no attack, which did disappoint me, and Reagan doesn't seem to listen well. Overall, this movie took my breath away, as it's scary, and the first 10 minutes was rather the most terrifying, and if anybody wants to see a movie in the theater, start with this one, as it works very well in the movie theater, just as John Krasinski wants you to experience it. And once again, very good job, Mr. Krasinski. Let's hear it for you. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for A Quiet Place, and until next time,